Hello, everybody. I'm Kat Timpf, along with Eric Bolling and Eboni K. Williams. 5 o'clock will never be the same. We are the Fox News specialists. President Trump is going on the offense after firing FBI Director James Comey. The president sitting down for an interview with Lester Holt of NBC News, detailing how he made his decision to fire the FBI chief.
Monday, you met with the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein.
Right.
Did you ask for a recommendation?
What I did is I was going to fire Comey. My decision. It was not.
You had made the decision before they came in the room.
I was going to fire Comey. There's no good time to do it, by the way.
Because in your letter you said I accepted their recommendation,
yeah, well,
so you had already made the decision.
I was going to fire regardless of recommendation.
So there was really
he made a recommendation. He's highly respected, very good guy, very smart guy. The Democrats like him, the Republicans like him. He made a recommendation, but regardless of recommendation, I was going to fire Comey.
President Trump also explaining his statement that Comey told him 3 times that he was not under investigation.
I actually asked him, yes. I said, if it's possible, would you let me know, am I under investigation? He said, you are not under investigation.
But he's given sworn testimony that there is an ongoing investigation into the Trump campaign and possible collusion with the Russian government. You were the centerpiece of the Trump campaign.
Well,
so was he being truthful when he says you were under investigation?
I know that I'm not under investigation, me, personally. I'm not talking about campaigns. I'm not talking about anything else. I'm not under investigation.
Also today, during a Senate Intelligence Committee hearing, the new acting FBI director was pressed about it.
Did you ever hear Director Comey tell the president he was not the subject of an investigation?
Sir, I can't comment on any conversations the director may have had with the president.
All right. How are you guys doing? Having a great day? Great day? More Comey news? I think the NBC interview was pretty interesting because he said he was going to do it regardless. Doesn't that make the timing make a little less sense in a way?
I'll jump right in here and say, so for 2 days or 3 days now, all we've heard about is the timing and whether, the left is so interested in finding out whether or not there's any collusion between Donald Trump and the Russians. For 10 months, it's up. They've investigated, they've dug, they've subpoenaed, and they found exactly 0, an airball on it. Meanwhile, ISIS is trying to take down the West, including us. North Korea is testing nuclear weapons against us and our allies. Iran is testing torpedoes in the Strait of Hormuz, where every single barrel of oil in at least that part of the world passes through. And they were worried about whether or not Donald Trump has still had a phone call with Putin or not.
All of those things you just listed are very bad, obviously.
I will say that. I'll say this, though, Kat. I had some experience and the great honor of working with the FBI and federal investigating agencies as a defense lawyer. They really won't tell you too much. Even when you ask them flat-out questions, hey, are you looking into my client? Oh, Miss Williams, we won't say, or not at this time. So I don't know, E. I'm looking to see where this ball ultimately lands. I'm with you right now. 10 months in, we don't have much.
Where do you stop, though? I mean, at what point do you say,
the feds can take
all
a while,
right, we're
though,
10 months in, and millions of dollars spent on agents searching and doing.
I hear you.
Is there a certain point where you go, okay, we didn't find anything?
I hear you. You know what? I had a client one time, E. They were investigating him for 5 years. Handed out an indictment 5 years later. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be the case here with Trump, but they sometimes take their time to get it right.
Forever. All right. Let's meet our Fox News specialists today. He is a retired police officer. He was elected as a judge at the age of 34 in Miami-Dade County. And, of course, he was the star of his own syndicated court show, Judge Alex. But he specializes in lobstering. Judge Alex Ferrer is here. And she is a radio talk show host. She writes a blog for the Washington Post, and she's a former producer and editor for NPR. But she specializes in all things First Amendment. Jamila Bay is here. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome, welcome.
It's a pleasure.
So, yeah, I mean, this has been a crazy week. I think it's very interesting that the acting FBI boss now doesn't seem to be a White House guy. He's saying it's a very, very important investigation. What do you think about that?
It is a very important investigation. I mean, I think that everybody, not, Republicans may not find it very important because they feel like it's already been beaten like a dead horse. And the Democrats didn't feel that the email scandal was a very important investigation. It's a matter of whose ox is being gored. But it really is an important investigation and needs to be put to rest. And it's not going to be put to rest by brushing anything aside. You know, the people who are saying, oh, this was an attempt to stop this investigation, don't know how investigations are conducted.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't look
that's
like it's
saying I'm
stopping.
going to stop the train by firing the conductor. The train's still going to go. It's just going to be a different conductor. There's a lot of people whose careers depend on that train moving, and a lot of people are and if you try to slow that train down, it's going to be outed by people from the inside. You have hundreds of agents that are involved in an investigation of this nature. They're not just going to all roll over because you changed the top guy.
And the acting boss, Andrew McCabe, said, you know what, this investigation goes on unimpeded. His
Absolutely.
unimpeded.
Yep.
So
That's
don't worry about
I can't
a
imagine
change in the director changing what's actually
I can't
going
imagine
on.
that Trump or any of his advisors would have ever considered that getting rid of Comey would have any effect on the Russian investigation. I might have gotten rid of him because he wasn't looking into the leaks to the satisfaction of the president, which obviously the president feels that the leaks are significant, and many people do as well. Maybe because he was out in the public eye, and I don't remember another FBI director who's been out in the public eye as much as Comey, and you really shouldn't be. You're the investigative branch, you're law enforcement branch, you're not a politician. So there may be a variety of reasons. I seriously doubt that to curb the investigation was the motive.
I also thought it was interesting, though, that McKay was saying that Jim Comey was very highly regarded in the FBI, which seems to go against, slightly against what Donald Trump was saying.
Absolutely. And, you know, to be honest, I'm shocked that, Judge Alex, I completely agree with what you're saying here.
I'm shocked that you're shocked you agree with me.
You know, hey, maybe you know what you're doing. But the thing about it is, right now, Eric, I got to argue with you. The timing requires an answer.
Why, Jamila?
The timing requires an answer because the question is raised. This strikes at the heart of our democracy right now.
Why?
The fact that
Why do you, I mean,
because
you're
if we're
repeating a left talking point saying,
no, this is not a talking point.
The investigation has gone on for 10 months, and there has been absolutely nothing.
Investigations go on that long.
In July of 2016, when Jim Comey cleared Hillary Clinton, the left loved Jim Comey, and then in October of that same year, when he said we're reopening the investigation, they were calling for his head. That was in October of last year.
So then let's hear what he's got to say. Let's hear what he finds. Let's hear from him again. This investigation is just starting to get to the point where, you know, I don't want to talk about bushes. It makes me want to think about, you know, the guy hiding in it looking at you, Spicer. But the thing is, right now, these questions are being raised. Has there been collusion with our government and the Russian government?
No.
Why?
We actually don't have an answer.
know that.
We don't have an answer.
Well, you'll never, if the answer is no, Jamila, it'll never get to yes.
What if the
answer is, you can keep looking, but unless you have a yes,
that
it's
was the
still
most
no.
roundabout argument ever. If the answer is no, we'll never get the yes.
No,
how do we know if the answer is yes?
If you're going to continue to investigate until you get a yes, at this point, you're going to do it ad nauseum.
I want to bring in one more thing here real quick. The acting FBI director also faced questioning today over the impact of Comey's dismissal on the Russia investigation.
Has the dismissal of Mr. Comey in any way impeded, interrupted, stopped, or negatively impacted any of the work, any investigation, or any ongoing projects at the Federal Bureau of Investigations?
As you know, Senator, the work of the men and women of the FBI continues despite any changes in circumstance, any decisions. So there has been no effort to impede our investigation to date.
I want to speak to this, Kat, because, you know, this is the beauty of this system. This is the beauty of any high-functioning, and I really hold our FBI still in quite a high regard, despite I have a strong distaste for Jim Comey and have for quite a while. I agree with Judge Alex. He made the office political by, first of all, being so visible. That is not the point of a law enforcement official in this country, especially when in that capacity. But this is the beauty. He's just the face at that point. At this point, Jim Comey was nothing more than the face of the FBI. The men and women that are on the ground, so to speak, are in the trenches with files this high on their desk. They are going to work every day like this never happened. And of course, it's disruptive. It might be distracting, but it is not going to take their eye off the ball. And to your point, Eric, here's the thing. 10 months might seem like a long time. It's really not. And I'm not saying that to be suspicious. They might get to know. They ultimately might get to know, and I'm telling you that absolutely you're right. But we don't know yet, and the feds take a little bit longer because, help me out, Judge, I think their accuracy rate, their conviction rate's around 98%. It's incredibly high. high when compared to
federal
the
government
federal
in general.
government.
Yeah.
Yeah, they tend to get it right, and the reason they do is because they take their time.
Yeah.
And that should be the most
Investigations can
important
long-
thing to everybody.
Investigations can last a very long time in the federal government. It could be years before
That's
you
what
ever
I said. I
find
had a
out you're even
client,
under
this
investigation.
guy judge, he thought he was in the clear. He was like, oh, I'm good, Miss Williams. Just joking.
But
Got
the
an
fact that they
indictment
didn't, but the
several
fact that
years
they
later.
wouldn't tell you
Right.
that he was under investigation doesn't mean they won't tell Trump. You're not
Yeah,
the president of the United
you're
States. That's a big
talking
deal.
about the
no,
president
not at all.
of the United States, and we know that a massive amount of resources are being devoted to this.
Sure.
We heard it today. We heard McCabe say, no, there's no drain on resources. We're putting a ton of resources towards it. We don't need any additional funds.
I believe it.
As opposed to what you hear on the left saying, oh, they were looking for more funds. That's why Jim Comey was removed.
But they don't
That's
do
not
that.
the case. McCabe said that was definitively not the
They don't
case.
typically come knocking for that.
He was removed because he serves at the behest of the president. Everything President Trump did was absolutely fair, legal, and constitutional.
So far as we know.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's keep looking and find out for certain.
To Jamila's point, and it's been said that if Hillary Clinton were the one who fired Comey, the Democrats, instead of yelling and screaming, would be applauding. I would flip it and say, in all honesty, if President Obama or Hillary Clinton fired the FBI director while they were investigating the email scandal, our same audience that is saying, what are you talking about, this is proper, would be going, this is the fix. The fix is in.
Absolutely.
It's like that meeting on the tarmac in
Absolutely.
Arizona.
And that's the problem with Jim Comey and the way he politicized, I believe, the office itself. Because now it's a no-win situation. I think he should have been fired. I don't blame President Trump for firing him at all. I've been very consistent around that. I think when you broke the news, I said, I think it's probably the strongest thing he's done as president. But we absolutely have to consider the context.
I think it's a judgment call for him.
Yeah.
I personally, I understand the different things that Comey did. I may disagree with one or two of them, but I understand what he did and why he did it. His explanations to me made sense, even though to a lot of people they were like, this is crazy. Nobody's ever done it before.
Judge, he was an investigator. He was the FBI director.
Sure.
He was not a prosecutor. You don't have a problem with him recommending to Loretta Lynch not to indict Hillary Clinton?
Oh, no, I have a problem with that. I think, this is my own personal feeling. My personal feeling is, and ironically, it's what he ended up doing, is that I think that Comey looked at it and said, this is a close call. Were it anybody but Hillary Clinton, I would go ahead and indict.
Yes.
But it's a close call, and by indicting her, I'm going to decide the next president of the United States. And I don't want to be the one who said Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States. So being a close call, I think he decided to go ahead and fudge on the no intent, when we all know that some of the crimes she was charged with did not require intent.
Well, also,
they were gross negligence crimes. Sure. But so I think that he made that call to basically say, I'm going to put it out there. She did all these things wrong.
He
Let everybody
injected
know.
himself into the political
He did.
process by doing that.
Exactly. And then once he went in front of Congress, once he sat in front of Congress and swore the investigation was over, and they started saying, good, then we want the transcript of this testimony, I don't think he had a choice once those other emails came out but to get up and say, I know I promised you this investigation was over under oath. It is now no longer over.
Well,
I think he
Jeff
boxed
Sessions
himself
flipped on that.
into that. He put himself in that position.
He flipped on that a little bit. So, all right, well, Democrats' grip on sanity seems to be unraveling after President Trump's firing of James Comey. Their freak out for the ages is just moments away. Oh, and make sure to follow us on social media, Specialist FNC on both Twitter and Facebook.
The left is freaking out over the dismissal of FBI Director James Comey. Still, 48 hours after the news broke of his firing by President Trump, they're spewing out so much hypocrisy, you can almost drown in it.
I think that there's just no doubt, given the timing, that the reason that Comey was fired was because Donald Trump wants to cut off any investigation into any connections that he has with his campaign and connections to the Russians.
This is not just a scandal. The president's actions are neither Republican nor Democratic. They're authoritarian.
So this is very dangerous for American democracy. Yes, I thought then that and I think now that what he did last year was very wrong, but that was last year. Now he's fired by the person he's investigating, who will now appoint his investigator. That's intolerable.
If this were Hillary Clinton, the Republicans would be trying to impeach her right now.
And naturally, the mainstream media, in turn, is spinning a false narrative about the death of the president's agenda and now unbreakable strife in Congress, all for a president using his lawful authority to fire a man virtually no one on either side of the aisle thought was fit for the job anymore. Eboni, I want to ask you about this. Do you think that, I know the answer to this, but do you think the Democrats are going to use this controversy, call it a scandal, call it a crisis of constitutional crisis, to slow walk President Trump's agenda?
Well, 100% yes. Obviously, we know that because they have become the party of resist for various reasons. But here's the issue. Here's what's wrong with what Elizabeth Warren said. When we all sat on this panel, almost in full agreement that we don't believe anything about this investigation is going to stop just because Jim Comey is gone. And Liz Warren, she's a lawyer. She knows that. So at that point, that looks like a talking point to me.
Jamila, McCabe today said he cannot confirm that there was any request made at all, and they don't typically request resources. So the firing of Comey can't be tied to a request for more resources, at least not from internally at the FBI.
Okay, but that again misses the larger point here. The larger point is that, look, this makes the American people to whom Donald Trump is accountable as our head of government, it makes the American people say, well, hold on, explain what's going on. This guy's investigating you, Mr. President. Why did you get rid of him? I don't understand. And what this means is that our democracy requires an answer to that question.
But Jamila, is the question why did you fire him, or why did you fire him now?
Why did you fire him now? We know that he's looking into you.
The investigation goes on, Jamila.
It goes on, and it needs to go on. But what needs to happen? And Fox needs to answer, CNN needs to answer, MSNBC needs to answer to the American voter. Here's what is at stake. Here's why this matters. If there is collusion with a foreign power, if the Russians involve themselves in your free and fair election, this is what it means. The UN gets involved in
I'm going to bring Kathy, but Jamila, you can't throw that out there. There is no collusion. There's no proof of collusion. So
it's only been 10
that
months.
Part of this equation.
It's only been 10 months, and Donald Trump seems to be so against this investigation. If there was nothing going on, and it were me, I'd say investigate away, investigate all day long, look into it, there's nothing to hide. He might be irritated by it, he may not be used to these kinds of things, because it's very different than being a CEO to be the president and be under these kinds of accusations. But everybody should be on the same side of let's make sure that the people who do these kinds of investigations for a living are telling us the investigation's over. They know better than any of us would know.
And Kat, Judge, it goes on. You replaced the FBI director, or you're about to replace the director. Sure. The agents are still in the field investigating.
They will continue to investigate. And as you started with the discussion about the Democrats now just yelling and screaming about, I know the clip after clip after clip. I saw the one with Chris Matthews, a whiff of fascism, like only he can say. The reality, I think, is on both sides, Republican and Democrat, politicians know that the only way to get your base out to vote for you is to keep them angry. And so anytime something like this comes out, even if they don't believe it's true, even if they've already gotten reports from the FBI and have heard that there's no evidence of any tie to Russia or any collusion with Russia, pounding that argument every day gets your base angry, and an angry base turns out to vote. An indifferent base doesn't turn out to vote. And unfortunately, that's something that I think both sides do, and is dividing our country further and further apart.
But does that obstruct the Trump agenda? We're already hearing people saying, well, okay, so we have this going on. We're going to have to hold off on health care for a while, and when you hold off on health care, you got to hold off on tax reform.
I don't think it should slow anything down, because one thing doesn't have anything to do with the other. The investigators...
But if you're a Democrat, you can use it to your advantage to slow walk.
Well, yeah, of course, they can obstruct and say, we're not going to do anything until you do this, because obviously this investigation has been tarnished. But there's only so many things they could obstruct, and they can obstruct anyway. They obstructed on Garner's nomination.
And that's my point, E. I think at this point the party has decided they're going to be resistant in totality. So I don't think this moves that football necessarily any further down the field. I would say this, if we're talking politics, if I'm advising the Dem party, I would say focus on the timing issue and ask those legitimate questions. What I don't think serves them is to kind of play revisionist historians around the Comey issue itself and try to make Jim Comey into some hero that clearly they never thought he was either.
And we should all just kind of wait and see, to an extent, who Trump appoints. You know, he has the interim right now, but who he appoints, that's going to be a huge issue.
It doesn't matter who he appoints, they're going to obstruct it.
It's going to be a huge issue. If he tries to appoint somebody who's a Republican, regardless of how qualified they are for the job, then everyone's going to say, see, he's doing it again. And optics do matter. They absolutely matter.
All right. We're going to leave it right there. An illegal immigrant deported 15 times, accused of badly injuring a 6-year-old boy in a car crash. Why was the man even on our streets? The boy's father speaks out next.
A 6-year-old boy is alive, thankfully, but he's seriously injured after someone who was in our country illegally crashed into the boy's family car drunk in Southern California on Saturday night and then fled the scene. 38-year-old Castellano Banda Acosta was arrested about 30 minutes later. Acosta, whose picture a judge ruled could not be released publicly without being blurred, was deported from the U.S. 15 times in 15 years. His most recent deportation was January 18th, yet somehow he got back into our country again. The boy's father spoke out about it to Fox and Friends earlier today.
I don't feel like this guy represents all illegals, but I feel like the ones that have the criminal record and have done bad things and have previously been deported, they shouldn't be finding ways back into the country and being allowed to hurt further people. We have a systemic problem that we all need to deal with. I don't think it's Republican or Democrat. I think as Americans, we just need to make sure that our country's safe for our kids and for the future generations, that we're not letting bad people stay here or keep coming back.
Judge Alex, I'm going to start with you on this. Obviously, all of our hearts go out to this young father. This is horrible. I think he is right to acknowledge this doesn't represent all immigrants, but certainly this is a real thing. This is a systemic thing. This isn't a one-off. This happens all too often. And I know in your experience in the courtroom, we know what this looks like from the ice holds, and some things fall through the crack. But how can we explain 15 times being deported over 15 years? Have you ever seen anything like that?
No, we can't explain that. There's no explanation for that at all. In fact, I'd like to say that Mr. Lake was very, I totally agree with him. I don't think it represents the typical immigrant out there. Most of the immigrants out there are working very hard and trying to support their family and their tax paying and all that, and doing jobs, by the way, that no American wants to do. Okay. That being said, that's not a comfort to somebody who is either murdered by an illegal immigrant, or whose child is murdered by an illegal immigrant, or is involved in a serious car accident, because to them, it wouldn't have happened but for his being in this country. When you have somebody who's come into the country illegally 15 times, gotten caught every time, sent back out, never locked up, what exactly is the deterrent to keep him from coming back 16, 17, 18, or 19 times? There is none.
There is none. So, Eric, I want to talk to you about this because we've talked on this show about when they come in, that's the crime. And I know that that's the position. And technically, to the letter of the law, you're absolutely right. But let's talk about this guy's criminal record. Now, we reached out Kat, I think you'll like this. We couldn't get a lot of facts because they sealed those records, but we know that there were multiple arrests, okay, including DUI, including suspended license. So when it comes to how we deport people, for you, should there be a priority list?
See, I'm a more hardliner. Look, we need to call this what this is. These are illegals. They're not immigrants. They're illegal immigrants. They've broken the law. This is the fallout. This is in California. This is the fallout from a very liberal sanctuary state. California is very liberal in this respect. This shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have happened. Remember Kate Steinle? The Steinle law that they were trying to push through Congress that never got enough steam for some reason meant that if you were caught, you deported and come back the second time you're caught,
5 years.
You go to jail for 5 years.
Absolutely.
Guess what would happen? The number of illegals would drop. Now, I'm also in the camp, not very conservative camp, by the way, that says increase legal immigration. Massively increase it from, I think we let in around 980,000 people into the country legally last year. Triple it. Make it a 3 million legal immigration policy, but also crack down on the illegals coming here time and time again so we don't have any more, so we severely reduce the risk of more of these.
Hey, Eric.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right.
Whoa, 531 on
yeah,
Thursday.
mark this occasion. When you repeatedly enter the U.S. and you're not supposed to be here, you become a felon. There are laws on the books that behavior turns you into a felon. You need to be locked up for at least a year. I don't know why that didn't happen in this case.
Especially, he had a DUI already?
A DUI. This little boy could have been taken forever from his family, coming back from a theme park, a wonderful day, to get, to get mowed down. I can't look at that.
The boy actually wasn't breathing on the scene. That's how serious the accident was. He had to be brought to light.
And thank medical science that they believe that this child is going to make a full recovery. That's the belief. We have yet to see. But somebody repeatedly entering this country illegally, unlawfully, has broken the laws of this nation, needs to suffer the punishment, needs to be put in jail.
He did have a prior arrest in January of this year. It's interesting that the records in California, you can hardly find out what any. I mean, if this guy was a CIA agent, they wouldn't have been able to scrub his records better than they did as an illegal immigrant. But it's hard to find out what it was. It's under the child neglect, child abuse chapter, but it looks like from reading the plain statute, it was a domestic violence case with a false imprisonment component. So why isn't the guy
So how can this happen?
reported at that point?
How can
you
this
have
happen?
a governor of California who said who actually allows for sanctuary status on cities.
Again, of course, I think it's important to note that this does not, of course, not represent all immigrants, even illegal immigrants. I'm obviously a little more liberal than your stance, although I certainly agree that a lot of things would be solved if we could increase legal immigration. But something like this just makes me look like, wow, this whole system must be really messed up. This person come back and forth and back and forth and back and forth
15 times.
15 times.
I mean, that's
and then
insane.
do this. I'm sorry, but there's no other take other than that this system is messed up.
I can give you pages of examples of an illegal coming back 2 or 3 times and similar things happening. So where's your line? Do you draw it at
think about all the
3
gang
or
members.
15?
All the gang members we have that are here illegal, MS-13, I think it is, right?
Oh, yeah, MS-13, yeah.
You know, I mean, that's one thing that Trump could go after 110%, and nobody would buck him on it. Fund the police departments that have gang units to go after all of the illegal immigrants who are making up all these gangs across the country and just wipe them out.
How about this, Judge? How about our president funds the federal agencies around this so that there's not this cross-jurisdictional issue that I think, unfortunately, people get hurt and killed falling through the cracks.
They can, under the federal, I forgot which act it is, they can deputize the state police agencies to act also as ICE agents.
Okay, that'll work too.
And they can use them in both capacities.
It won't help if they don't. I'm sorry, they won't help unless they push back and break the sanctuary city laws or rules, not laws.
Well, we'll continue it, guys. Student chaos spreading all over American college campuses. The reason, apparently, a hatred for President Trump. The heckling of an educational secretary just scratches the surface. Don't go away.
I think I might give away $1 million. I think I might give away a brand new truck. Cause I feel good. Yeah, I feel good. Cause I feel good.
Welcome back to the Fox News Specialists. Our specialists today are Judge Alex Ferrer and Jamila Bay. All right, let's continue the conversation. Schools are proving their weight in gold for material this week. First up, a New York college lacrosse team is taking the field in a most unusual way to the sounds of a Donald Trump speech.
We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. God bless you and good night. I love you.
The video of the Adelphi University players creating a big stir online, with those on the left outraged that anyone, anywhere could be inspired by anything President Trump says. Okay. They apologized for this. They said, we're sorry if anyone's offended. If you're offended by the president's words, I guess that's your issue, and you have the same right to say it as they have to play it, but don't apologize for that, right? Does anybody disagree with me?
You're adults in college. Stand by what you said. Right. If you're wrong, you're wrong. If you're right, you're right. But everybody is going to have an opinion about it. Stand up and be proud or lacrosse-y. I don't know what the
No, but you know what? The lacrosse team liked it. And they were jazzed by it. They got hyped by it. So, you know, too bad if they're offended in the crowd. By the way, I'd much rather hear President Trump talking pro-American, be proud of America, make America great again, than that jerk in San Francisco that kneels for the national
anthem.
Kaepernick,
yeah, and he didn't apologize for anyone who's offended. He shouldn't have to either. It's called free speech. It's called free speech.
I didn't see anything wrong. Like, there wasn't a clip of him saying something anti-immigrant or something like that.
He was just like, America.
That being said, I don't like politicizing sports in any way. I don't like it when Kaepernick does it or anybody else kneeling in protest at the national anthem. I don't like it. I wouldn't like it if it was if they came out to a playing of Hillary Clinton saying, we're stronger together, because you're dividing people. You know, our country's at a point now where we've picked either left or right, or we pick sides. And why you're in a sports competition, people are coming to see you compete. That's what they're there for, not to hear your political position.
We got more. We got more stuff too. Okay, the University of Arizona is proving that it may be able to waste money better than any other public university. The school is paying $10 per hour for students to become a social justice advocate, which includes tattling on other students for perceived bias incidents. The thing is now, anything from saying you guys to wearing hoop earrings can be a bias incident. And I think that if you have a problem, you should report it. But if you don't think it's a problem, why are you reporting on someone else?
Well, first of all, I think that's ridiculous. You should report issues that relate to you. And who knew this was a side hustle? I mean, I wish I would have known. I would make $10 an hour for something like this at Chapel Hill. I mean, this is, and I think it underscores, I'm joking, but it underscores an incentive to possibly either fabricate or look at things the wrong way. I think that's really unhealthy.
Absolutely. If you're not a victim and you don't feel like one and you don't want to report it, why should someone else do it?
Yes.
What's the point?
I have a son who's a freshman in college. This scares the heck out of me. I wrote a book on being anti-social justice warrior, and I see this. There was a study out by the Economic Journal Watch last year, end of last year. Here's the ratio: liberal professors to conservative professors, 12 to 1.
Yeah.
12 to 1.
Judge Alex,
in 40
I think
major
these students who are doing this job should have to identify themselves so the other students know to not invite them to their parties.
That's a good rule. I'm pretty sure that they already aren't invited to
Yeah, probably not.
And 12 to 1 doesn't even show it's only the tip of the iceberg, because that one isn't able to speak his own mind, because then he gets fired. These students have been empowered. It's not just a matter of social justice. Fine, you want to teach that, of course, teach it. Teach racial inequality and all that. But they've been empowered to the point where professors who I always thought were untouchable because of tenure get fired because they disagree with a student. I mean, you couldn't kick a student out for disagreeing with a professor, but the professors, if they say, you know what, I don't think safe spaces are a good idea because you don't get an exchange of ideas and also you're self-segregating yourself, well, you're a racist and I want you, and they resign, they get pushed out.
And the kids that are the ones throwing the professors out are going to be the same kids who have this job. Because if you were a normal kid, you wouldn't be doing this job.
No, and the other thing is that you're really setting them up for the real world, because there's no employer that's going to listen to that. In the real world out there, that doesn't work.
All right, well, got one more. Betsy DeVos, the Secretary of Education, getting a disgraceful reception in Florida yesterday from students while trying to deliver Bethune-Cookman University's commencement address.
Dr. Jackson, Board of Trustees, thank you so very, very much for this great honor and privilege. I am honored to become a Wildcat.
I mean, booing is always rude, I think, in a situation like this.
BCU grads, I commend you. You spoke your mind. You were not saying boo-earns. You were not singing boulez-boo, couchez avec moi, as the meme goes. You were standing up for someone. You were standing up for yourselves. You were standing up for your university, which is an HBCU, which had its funding threatened by Donald Trump. He had to walk that back, but not at the time of that speech. You're standing up for the rights of students who are overwhelmingly poor, who are overwhelmingly disenfranchised, who overwhelmingly come from schools, post-secondary schools that made it hard to even get into college. Standing up to someone who is wanting to monetize all the education so that we divest funds from the public schools and put it into charter schools.
Much more effective charter schools, we might call them.
I live in on ground zero. Oh no, the facts do not bear that out. It's statistically indeterminate from the testing that happens.
Charter schools? Oh, they outperform the public schools.
They're not. We'll go all day on that. No.
I would say that all that aside, it was disrespectful. She was invited as a guest. If they didn't want to applaud, they could have sat there silently after she spoke and not applauded, and they would have the silence would have been deafening. But booing somebody who came to speak at your graduation, I think is just disrespectful.
Let me say this about it. I think that they were well within their First Amendment rights. It was a peaceful protest of the secretary. And here's what's better. The secretary herself says she has respect for these students because they disagreed with her. They were peaceful about it. She hopes that, that they can move a dialogue forward that's helpful. Eric, I got to push back. I'm all about school choice. I'm a big fan of it. But if we look to Michigan, where the secretary, has her experience, those schools are not better. Those schools are worse.
Across the board,
but that's her
charter schools
experience.
outperform
But
public
that's her experience in Michigan.
Absolutely.
But a final point, I think these students at this college were well within their right, because HBCUs, the secretary said, were this original school choice. Not so much. Not a choice.
We have Kellyanne Conway calling out the left-wing media for a double standard on sexism. Don't miss it.
My pal Kellyanne Conway calling out the media's gross double standard over sexism following her contentious interview with CNN's Anderson Cooper Tuesday.
I was on your show often last fall saying we were going to win Michigan and how we were going to do it. So that was fun. But here's what happened today.
So what was your reaction to that?
I face sexism a lot of times when I show up for interviews like that. Could you imagine rolling your eyes, having a male anchor on a network roll eyes at Hillary Clinton, at somebody, a female representative spokeswoman for President Obama or President Bill Clinton? I think not.
All right, Ebony, the eye roll seen and heard around the world, your thoughts?
Look, I thought the eye roll was unprofessional. I thought it was inappropriate. I disagree with Ms. Conway. I don't think it was sexist, because I'm pretty sure Anderson Cooper would have been that petty with Sean Spicer as well.
All right.
My take.
Your thoughts on the eye roll?
So he was asking her about Donald Trump's flip-flop with regards to Comey, and she responded by talking about how they won Michigan. So it's come on. I mean, a little bit. I feel like other people were rolling their eyes back at home. And I also believe in gender equality, which means I believe in equal opportunity to have someone roll their eyes at you.
I'm not cutting you off. I'm just laughing hysterically. Can you keep rolling that eye roll? Because it's so watchable TV. Jamila, I'm sorry. So I kind of agree with Kellyanne. If I had done that with a Hillary Clinton interview, I would be lit up by the left.
If Hillary Clinton's spokesperson said something as obnoxious and off the wall as Kellyanne Conway said, you would have been completely within your rights to roll your eyes till they fell out of your head.
What did she say that was obnoxious or off the wall? They won Michigan.
I will concede Ebony's point. It was unprofessional. When you're the news anchor, you sit there and you suck it up at Buttercup and do it right. But you know what? Anderson had his fill, and he rolled his eyes.
I just want you to know.
Wait, I have a question for Kat. I actually think Anderson Cooper, did he forget that we can see past the glasses? I thought it was a glasses issue.
I forget that sometimes.
Yeah, right? Okay.
Yeah,
See, I don't think it was sexist. I think Anderson Cooper rolled his eyes at her because Anderson Cooper, he would not have rolled his eyes at a male spokesperson of the Obama administration because he agrees with his policies.
But I think he would have done it with a male Trump.
He would have done it with a male Trump one as well. The real hypocrisy about gender in the media is Sarah Palin. When you see the way they dragged her over the coals and you didn't hear a peep from the media, back then that was really patent sexism. This, I don't think.
Maybe not sexism, but there certainly is a media double standard, by the way.
Oh, it's unprofessional.
The vast mainstream media treats the pro-Trump people and the not-so-pro-Trump people, yeah?
Yeah, I think Judge is right on that. They're going to affirm their bias. I think we can expect that. It's unprofessional. It shouldn't be done. But unfortunately, this is where we are now.
Given the opportunity to take that eye roll back, I'm guessing he would, no?
Maybe. I feel like a lot of people on the left have no problem with it. I don't think it was sexist. It was a rude, sure, but again, talking about winning Michigan in response to a question about Trump's flip-flop, clearly not what he was asking.
There's no way he takes the eye roll back.
She said trip down memory lane and talked about Michigan. That's completely unrelated.
Why is rude any better than sexist?
Rude can be applied to everyone. Sexism is applied only to a specific gender at a specific
calling out
time.
sexism when it doesn't exist diminishes real instances of sexism.
You were being absurd, and that's what he called you.
The reason Anderson Cooper would not take that eye roll back is because he hasn't gotten this much publicity from one of his segments in who knows how long.
There you go. First time he's been on Fox News in a while. Don't go away. We circle back with our specialists, Judge Alex and Jamila Bay, right after this.
Time for our daily segment, Circle Back, where we return to a point made by one of our specialists earlier in the show, or Eric, Kat, or myself get to ask any questions we're dying to ask them. So, Jamila, what was your favorite story to talk about today?
Oh, Bethune-Cookman.
Okay,
Bethune-Cookman by far. I mean, American students look to Vietnam, look to the protests in the early 2000s around the World Bank. American students on college campuses have always been little hellions to raise hell and be like, yay, this is what we want. When do we want it? Well, we don't know, but now it's good. You know, and I am all for free speech, and particularly when young people who are shaping this country get together and do it in a way that makes a wave.
Ooh, I have a question for Judge Alex. I love the show Judge Alex. I never had cable. What was your favorite case ever on Judge Alex?
Oh my God, I had so many. It'd be hard to pick one in particular, but I remember one girl who was dating this guy for about 6 months, and when they broke up, she handed him a bill for every penny she spent on him during those 6 months.
She's a hero.
No, I'm telling you, she itemized postage stamps, a Subway sandwich, and this idiot started paying her back and paid back about $2,000 until finally his family told him to grow a spine, and he stopped. And she's the one who sued him.
I need to learn from her.
And my circle back is I used to host a show right here called The Five, and if you watch The Five for 6 years, I adore Latin culture. And I just found out something about you, Alex. I did not know that you are of Cuban descent.
Yes, I was
dying to visit Cuba. What should I do? Where should I go?
Well, I wish I could tell you because I haven't been back. But I was born in Havana. I was fortunate enough to come to the United States when Americans opened their arms to us, like they've done so many times for immigrants from all over the world. And we were given the opportunity to start a new life here. In fact, I wrote a piece about it for the Huffington Post. Asked me to write a piece. It's called "A Debt I Can't Repay." I wrote it like 4 years ago, and I think that. One of the presidential candidates stole that for his tagline, but in any event, it's a beautiful country, and pretty soon it's going to be commercialized, unfortunately.
I've got to get there before that.
Yes.
Get there quick.
I agree.
Thank you so much to our Fox News specialists today, Judge Alex and Jamila Bay. And we thank you all for watching. And make sure you follow us on social media at Specialist FNC on both Twitter and Facebook. And remember, 5 o'clock will never be the same. Special report up next.